Well, welcome to episode 151 of Trending Topics with BB. I reached 150 yesterday, totally different topic, but I'm happy because we can talk about SEAL Team. Um, and I wanted to bring my guests that I've met from just being a fan on Twitter and social media. Welcome, Julie. Welcome, Jazz, to my podcast. And I know we were talking in the pre show a little bit about when we started watching the show. So, you guys both started watching when it was on CBS 4 or 5 years ago, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Actually,
I
I didn't. I binge watched it the first three seasons because I was a big Hawaii Five-O fan, and when that ended, I was like just looking for something else. And my Hawaii Five-O friend Leanie said, "Oh, you've got to try SEAL Team. You would love it." And so I binge watched it that summer, and then found Jazz, and we talked about it waiting because it ended on that Jandy kiss of season three.
Right.
I
Yeah.
loved them, and I was so excited for season four. And anyway, we talked that whole summer before season four started, and that was how I came along.
That's
I
awesome.
was a Hawaii Five-O fan too. I
Steve
love that
McGarrett,
show.
man, love
Mm.
that guy.
He was a badass.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, I watched. So Bones had ended, and I think like Dave took like barely 3 months off, and then there was this headline and it was like, oh, David Boreanaz, taking on a new role, and I'm like, wait, what? And then yeah, no, It's funny because SEAL Team came on that fall. There was another show on NBC called The Brave, which was like another military type show that was similar. It was like a special ops type, thing too. And it's funny because I think I liked that show a little bit more than I did SEAL Team. I think SEAL Team took like a few episodes for me to kind of like build up, but I was like, it's Dave, I'll like it. So, no, yeah, I started from the very beginning on CBS there, and here we are 5 seasons later. So.
Well, I was explaining. I well, I'm a streaming aholic, but it's also because I cut cable like 8 years ago. I was one of the early adopters of cutting cable and going straight to streaming and then catching up. But I started watching this like 3 months ago. So I put the binge watching all the episodes to be caught up for season 5 because I wanted to be watching with everybody else. So that's kind of where I'm behind, but I think I like that because it's like I don't have to like go back and watch things. I remember like they're fresh in my mind, so that helps for me. Because if I was watching it years ago and haven't watched season 1 recently, I think I would be a little bit lost. But because there's just so much detail in the show, and I think that's why
I'm
it's
really weird about details though. I'll like be like, "Oh, you remember that one thing where whatever?" And I'll be like,
yeah.
I think that's why we get along so well, Jazz. You and I both notice the details.
you know, be like, "Oh my god, he said this or she said that. They said that back in season 1."
Yep, exactly.
I love references. I like the like inside
There
baseball.
has I don't know if I know Julie and I have talked about this, but I think from the beginning of season 3 up until this point, there is so much
Yes,
overlapping of
it really is.
conversation topics and phrases and concepts that like I don't know, I think we might actually finally address some of it, it seems like, hopefully. I hope.
Yeah.
Well, I like it, and I think for me, I think it's been the switch from CBS to Paramount Plus because when I've noticed because I was watching shows that were canceled on other networks that went to Netflix recently, that were picked up
Hmm.
by Netflix, and then Netflix made them better because they're able to just there's no time limit. They're not trying to go around like the commercials. They're about I've seen streaming turn it more about the writing and more about addressing what it's like the writers are lurking heavily on social media, see what everybody's talking about, and then they're like, "Oh, we need to like address this, what we've mentioned maybe in a previous episode, but now." And that's what I feel like we are getting to now in season 5 because especially the episode that aired or released today, it was intense because it was a lot about I like the character development when they're not even on missions right now because yeah, it's intense to watch them be a SEAL team and kick ass, but I think what's great is that the relationships and the realism of mental health in the military and stuff going on back home with their families, it's realistic to what happens in the military. It's not like they forget about their families or their friends when they're completely in the like. I love that they kind of bring back and try to be as realistic. And I think with having so many veterans on the show help write and facilitate, I think that's why it's really good. But a lot of people are like mad at
Yeah.
that.
Part of me misses
I mean,
the balance of it. I think having the missions and the deployment be, such an integral part of the show with the family stuff as peripheral. Now it's kind of flipped where it's mostly family stuff with the missions being peripheral. It's just an interesting balance and line that they're walking.
oh yeah, I mean, because the first, the first three seasons were definitely way more military mission
Yeah.
focused. You got, like you
Mhm.
said, you had little tidbits of home stuff going on and you saw it, but they never quite dove into it as much as they did. And then season 4 came. That was when we really started, I think, to
Yep.
see. And I think a lot of that had to do with the pandemic too, because they couldn't travel. They
Sure.
couldn't, there was also, I think, like rumors were that they hit a bunch of budget cuts and everything like that. So the show, like from the beginning, sounded like it was already like on the chopping block of like being canceled. So it was like totally. I know Julie and I were talking, we're like, wow, this is a lot of drama. We haven't seen like this much drama. I mean,
Yeah.
I do agree it's an issue that needs to be talked about because I mean, we're at a point now where you see like this job that these guys do, it's not just affecting them, it's everything and everyone around them, which right now
Yes.
with Jason's storyline is like huge. So
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Clay's storyline. I wish we were
yeah.
talking about the episode first because I have so much I want to say about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to get to it real quick, but I just kind of wanted to give the overarching themes.
Sure.
For those that are like checking out this later in the replay and be like, oh, maybe I need to go back and rewatch something or start watching it. But yeah, I get the balance, but I like it because I think the issue too is I feel like they were on the line of like it's kind of like going with the headlines. So I like the fact that they're kind of bringing up episodes and subjects line that is kind of pertaining to what's happening right now with like being in Afghanistan and withdrawing from Afghanistan and like 9/11 and everything that, that episode where they went, to the memorial. And I think it's great because I've seen a lot of I have military family members that are, were in Afghanistan and Iraq and stuff. So, it's kind of portrayal of realism in military hasn't really, other than like war documentaries or war movies, but even those sometimes seem a little less realistic than this. And I think this is showing because we don't really know much about SEAL teams in the fact. Normally you just hear about military as a whole, but I think it's great that they're focusing on like a
Well,
specific
I think like
SEAL
with SEAL team, what they do is they just go like, oh, it's just a bunch of badass guys that go kick people's butts, and like
Yeah.
action. I don't know if you've ever watched a lot of like Dave's interviews or any of the cast interviews and stuff, but I mean, Dave especially, he talks about just like every level of production has vets, and like you
Yeah.
have Tyler Gray here who apparently is out in Saudi Arabia like making a documentary right now, which is why he left the show, I believe. But
Oh, okay.
or I don't know, left the show, but he's not there
Like a
right now.
sabbatical.
Yeah, he's taking a sabbatical or something. But I mean, like, the guy who plays Full Metal, Scott Fox, he's an actual vet. You've got Justin, who I think he might have done medical in the Army, or he's more police. I don't know. It's just like they have so much integrated, which is great, and it's kind of sucks that like as a military show, they don't probably get near as much recognition as they should. But I mean, Dave is all about like making everything as authentic as possible. I mean, in one of his recent interviews too, even just to represent them, like he got all choked up, which is like, how many actors you see get that like emotionally involved, and that's just who he is though. So
well, and I don't know if you know, I write books about Griffin Force, which is kind of an international task force, and I try to make it super realistic as well and have a little network of military men and women that I use to make it realistic. And it's just amazing what these people go through, and to have their stories told like on shows like SEAL Team or in books it is an honor. And I just think they should be more recognized, I think, sometimes than they are.
Well, what I like about it too is that it's not politicizing them. The news and the headlines and the internet politicizes what it means to be a veteran, what it means to be in the military. What I think I love about the show is that it's not about that, even for the men and women who are serving. And I've heard that from friends and family in the past that I know who've served. It's not always about the political agenda that the news says it's about. And sometimes it is, but it's that balance of realism that I'm kind of liking in the intensity. So I guess we should talk about the last couple episodes and lead into today, because it's kind of the show's just intense every episode, especially now that this is the middle. There's a two-parter that this is, and those are always like the cliffhanger of it all. So for those that haven't watched, uh, a couple, was it 2 episodes ago, they were all in the hospital from a failed mission, basically. I mean, the mission didn't fail, but yeah. And then what was great about that episode is I liked how they did it from like Clay's point of view of like trying to figure out what happened, what went wrong, where they're all in Germany in the hospital. And then you come to find out that it's Jason's TBI of him forgetting, where to breach is the reason why the building collapsed. And then that's just been a theme the last couple episodes leading into today's episode where he confronts Jason. So other than the other parts of that, let's just talk about the Bravo side of it, and then we'll get into the other part. Like, how have you guys felt about the intensity of just them as brothers and teammates and everything that's been going on? They're not always, it's also, they're not a perfect team. There's, stuff is going wrong and they're having to balance things. So what are your thoughts on the recent storylines?
I have a lot to say about Clay's storyline.
Okay.
I
Go
think
for
he
it.
is getting the meatiest storyline, and today's was so interesting because he has this secret that he's the one that knows that Jason TBI is more dangerous than everybody thought. But he was also there when Jason stepped away from the teams last season, and how that didn't really go that well for him. And
Right.
Clay knows that Jason only has Bravo. He doesn't really have anything else in his life. And he also knows if he tells this secret, then Jason will probably step away or be taken away from the teams, and he'll have nothing. And remember the last time Clay had a legendary veteran who stepped away from the teams and had TBI and had nothing, and that was Swanee. And Clay was the one holding his dead body after he killed himself. And I think Clay is so fearful of what's going to happen to Jason if the secret comes out. That's why he's hesitated so long, I think. And that's why this is such an internal struggle, because here he is stepping away, sacrificing, being there for his son who's in the NICU, to be there for Jason, to help him keep operating, to help keep the team safe. Nobody knows it. Nobody knows the sacrifice, but they're all pushing his buttons. And yet here, is Jason. And I think Jason knows what Clay is saying is what he's thinking. And that's why Jason is so fearful of what Clay is saying is true. So it's such an interesting internal emotional struggle between these two, and it makes it so riveting to watch.
I think it's really interesting too, the parallels, because we have Jason talk about from 401 when we had that awesome flashback of like where Jason was at kind of the beginning of this war and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And to see, so Jason lost, a comrade, and then he was supposed to go home for probably the birth of his son, but didn't go home. He stayed because, he's like, I'm going to stay. And then that's how Bravo 1 came. But now you look at Clay, and he's in that same position. He's got, his kid is born, fighting for his life. And now he's got this decision of like, okay, well, I know that, like you said, he knows the secret. So does he stay here with his family? Like because he's doing that struggle of like, I want to be Ray with, the family life, but I want to be Jason, out in the field. And, and I think he's starting to hit those truths of like how hard that balance is going to be. Because I don't know I don't know what balance defined in this world really is, because I think no matter what, it's going to be you, it's going to be them or the family, or there's going to be huge sacrifices to be given. So I don't think there's an ultimate balance, but there's something that might work, so.
Well, and wasn't it interesting when Jason kept telling him to stay home, be with your son, you're going to thank me later. So Jason's doing what he thinks is best for Clay. Clay's doing what he thinks is best for Jason, and it's causing this delicious tension that we can't look away from.
Well, and you look at the end of season 4 when they're on the plane back home, and Jason says, like, if you being Bravo 1 is going to be you, like, in a garage apartment, like, I don't want to be there. Otherwise, I'll buy you that. So it's like, again, like I was saying before in the pre-show, like, there's so many words and concepts and dialogue just circling right now that are coming to a light.
The no choice
At the
in
same,
duty
my
phrase.
only issue, so I get Clay's struggle, but I guess my thing is, I think it's interesting that he doesn't think he can talk to like Ray or Sonny, because I saw some fans talk about, like with Ray last season, we saw Jason take Ray to the therapist, and kind of help him out with his issues. And I think in season 3, someone mentioned that Sonny actually had a decent conversation with Jason before his surgery, and getting the surgery done and stuff like that. So I think like if Clay were to at least tell Ray or Sonny or both, like, if you come as a united front, maybe Jason won't feel so attacked. But right now he feels attacked, and we all know when Jason feels like you're just coming for him, he, and you look at too, he's pushing everyone away right now too. So he's already in that mental like state of, I'm going to push everyone away and destroy everything in my life. I mean, the way he left things with Emma, like,
Yeah. I was just going back to the, don't you think right now there are shades of the first and second season with Ray being the peacemaker between Jason and Clay, and how that whole dynamic is working between the 3 men. I kind of like that Ray is stepping up to, calm both men down and be the peacemaker. And he actually had a really happy, episode, really, that he got the, cleared up from his PTS in Nigeria, and he's got this nonprofit going, and I really think they can do a lot with the Ray nonprofit story.
I agree.
I hope they do, because the one storyline last season that I was really disappointed about was when they talked about the sexual harassment thing. I was like, oh, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
And then it kind of became like this dud of a storyline, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I wish Lisa had told somebody on the team, or had it be more than just her story that kind of, like you said, died. It's kind of like this paper story. It's kind of, I don't really understand what's going on. She wrote a paper that I guess Command isn't happy with. What?
Well, what I was going to say, I was going to go back real quick, is I think it's funny, like you just mentioned about the parallelism with season 1, is like, because when Clay was, training before he got chosen to be on Bravo, there was that whole thing of like, because they didn't like, there was all that baggage of his dad, who was a piece of work. But also, there's that. And then to kind of go with what you were saying now of, Lisa's stories are great, but I think it's the fact that they're pointing out that there has been some like military folks that kind of want to prove that not everything is going as, all roses, I guess, and that Command and I think it's great that they're like trying to show that there's people within the military trying to question what's going on. But I think it's interesting that they're like still wanted to be like, all right, well, we're not happy about it, so this is kind of like we're gonna,
we're gonna punish you.
Yeah, we're gonna punish you, or you don't have the respect from your, the people.
I wish they would have attached her to an admiral or somebody who had more clout, because I really don't think Command really cares what some low man on the totem pole really has to say. I guess I don't understand how it's become such an important thing, her being put on that DOD committee. Just, I don't know, it just seemed more like a college class.
I mean, the only reason I can see why it became an important thing was Tony is actually pregnant in real life right now. So I know they're looking for, ways to like still have her there, because you can't, it would be weird if they just took Lisa off like randomly,
Right.
I mean, I know Jessica is pregnant as well as the girl who plays Hannah, Rachel, she's pregnant as well. They have like something in the water over there. So
Yeah.
but I mean, I do agree a little bit with Julie, because I'm kind of just like, well, she's kind of new in this whole field. So how her paper creates such a, or unless it's just something like they just want to shut her down like before she can start. I don't know.
But it's
Or it's a
also,
way to bring Blackburn back into it, because we see
yeah.
him a little
Yeah.
bit more now too.
I'm so glad Blackburn's been back so often.
I mean, he has an office on base, it seems like, so I think we
Yeah.
should see him more.
I think so too.
I think
Well, I
like,
think it's interesting too because they're trying, because there's always just been this, I don't know, from my understanding of just how women have it harder in the military than men. And I think that's great that they're kind of addressing that, but at the same time, to kind of say, oh, we don't like your paper and let's not talk about it anymore. It's kind of like,
Makes sense.
wait a minute, like like she was, she, is in the position she's in and then on the committee for a reason. So
well,
yeah.
someone suggested to me they think, because so in this last episode we saw Jason and Lisa have a little scene before going into the briefing room. Someone
Yeah.
was thinking they think possibly Lisa might be, I don't know if her research included like, the mental part, because we know I'm pretty sure that Jason is getting treatment by during episode 12, because
Spoiler
there's,
alert! Spoiler
yeah,
alert!
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like the set pics are all out there, which they look fantastic. So, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know if it's far fetched to think maybe Lisa might help or be a part of whatever is about to come for Jason. I don't. Could
I
it
mean,
be? I'm not quite 100% sure what's in her paper, I guess, or what her thesis was, but I assume it has something to do with, you know, soldiers and mental health and all that stuff. And if that's the case, I think that would be like a nice way to maybe help out.
We just need more details to make the story more powerful. I think it could be something awesome if we had an idea of what it really is.
Well, I think it's like you said, like she didn't get like I don't know if you guys watched Chicago Fire, but like on Chicago Fire there was a character, Stella, who is doing stuff for like trying to empower like, women to get into the fire department and showing the struggles and stuff like that. But they did it in a way kind of like she got attached to someone in the department that's high up there, and like working her way, like like they didn't give Lisa that,
Yeah.
now that Blackburn is kind of like gone and he's in a different role, which I think of, and like Blackburn says, he's like, I know you're doing all this in good intention, but
Yeah.
shit's gonna hit the fan when this comes out. So
yeah, and maybe it's just the lack of details will lead to something later in the season. I mean, I think we'll find out because it keeps coming up in scenes about whatever paper and that it was still turned in because really wasn't the scene at the bar. He was warning her not to turn it in, and then she did turn it in, and then now it's like she's on thin ice with command.
well,
So
okay, so first off, SEAL team and timelines never add up, because
yeah,
you're just like, wait a second, because we know when the paper thing happened, the guys were in the hospital. So, and we know from episode 9 to 10, it seems like 2 weeks passed, because Stella's saying, their kid has been in the NICU for 2 weeks.
Yes.
So somehow months have passed, because
Yeah. That's true.
all the guys are kind of like healed up now. So, I just
Well,
somewhere in
Lisa
those
got a
months-
new boyfriend out of it, so.
who?
Although I think that's why it feels more collegiate to me because he looks so young and it feels like a college type paper talking about my paper and editing my paper. And so I think maybe that's why it feels collegiate to me.
Well, speaking of that, let's go into the relationships part of it. We'll bring up. I was actually heartbroken when it was like Hannah shows up and she's like, I'm pregnant. Because I was like really starting to get going with Sonny and Lisa being together. Because for some reason it worked. I liked their dynamic. Because, we finally saw Sonny being like serious about, somebody and not making jokes all the time. Because, Sonny isms are the best thing of the show. But I think it's great that they were doing it. And then all of a sudden Hannah shows up because of the one episode where he goes back to Texas and all that went down. So that was interesting. And then what are your thoughts? I know everybody I have an unpopular opinion about the whole Jandy situation, but they just kind of like did it and then like now it's like, oh, he has TBI, so let's not talk about Mandy anymore. So
I think there's a lot more where about so Julie and I are big Jandy fans, if you don't know.
oh, I know.
But
That's why I said I have an unpopular opinion.
my thing is, so the two of them, whether you like them together or not, they have a friendship at the
Yeah, I
foundation.
do like that.
They have
And
a really solid connection.
I mean, it broke my heart to see Mandy walk out in 9, but at the same time, I can't blame her because Jason he says this is not J-Bad all over again, but it kind of is. And she's
Yeah.
she knows that she can't push him. She knows him real well compared to, other love interests. I mean, Alana's the only other one that would know him as well as she probably does.
Yeah.
And
So
Mandy knew him in a different way than Alana too, where she knew
right.
Bravo 1
She
and
knew
Jason.
Bravo 1.
Yeah.
And she knows Jason Hayes in a way, and I think when we saw them together in 7, when there's that car scene and when they're out on the street talking before, leaving and everything, and she's like, oh, look at you, you're doing it. And like, he takes that to heart. Like, he takes everything she says to heart. She tells him in season 3, if you're not all in on a relationship, you're not in it at all. And then he goes to Natalie and says, I want to be all in. So and a lot of their conversations from season 3 beginning, the whole ignore and override talk and, the walk that they had and this and that, and, all in all the time doesn't leave any room for us. Like all that talk that they had is all circling right now. And they're using, again, last night or in this episode, I guess, Jason says in the briefing room, no choice and duty. That was a Jandy episode, and that's a big phrase, that between the two of them, they had to talk about that. I don't know. There's just a lot of themes, and they have great talks. And
the thing that stuck out to me in 9 when she walks away from him was, do you remember when they were in Africa and they're at the cars and she's saying to him, I am a professional liar, but I've never lied to you. And he just kind of was like, yeah. And she doesn't press him. She doesn't try to make him believe her. She's just like, okay. And she starts to walk away. And then he is the one who said, I got stabbed for you. I want a phone call, not a text. And then here we have in 9 where she's asking him, talk to me. And he won't. And she doesn't push him. She's like, okay, I'm walking away.
The thing is, when Jason comes back to the room, you have to remember she doesn't know anything about. Right. He just went and saw his father, which his father did not help with.
Yeah, that was such a big God. With the dad. The dad we've never heard of before, suddenly popping up out of like the Jerry Springer.
The only time we ever heard about Jason having a dad was in that helicopter crash. Then his name was Dave or something like that, which is ironic. But I just think
he was mentioned in Alana's funeral, though, that why isn't he here at the funeral? I do remember there was a line in that episode when Jason finally gets the heart to go out. He was out in the garage messing with the car, and then he goes in, and there was a line in that. I remember there was a line like, why didn't he come? Because, of course, the mother was there helping with everything. But then that's the only last time.
I don't know if I thought the writers tweeted that they cut something out.
Yeah, well, maybe it was cut out and I just saw
because
it.
I commented on that and then they quoted my tweet and they said like blah blah blah. We actually cut out a whole bunch of stuff about his dad in the funeral stuff because I think I tweeted something like, "You son of a bitch, you didn't even go to the funeral."
Yeah,
they chose that tweet of mine to share, and I'm like, oh boy.
Well, something like that. Maybe I just misread a tweet or something, but That
mean,
and then
I
that's
think,
just
like I
he
said,
was
I
just a
think
piece of work.
I don't think there was anything Mandy could have said
No.
or done because Jason came back to that room and someone else was talking. I was talking with someone else about this too. Jason came back there, I think, and he didn't expect her to be there.
Yeah.
And he was probably going to break down or whatever, or have his moment. And, and I know a lot of people are like, well, she left him crying. I'm like, I just think it was a situation where you saw her pushing. She wasn't pushing as hard as like, we saw like Natalie sometimes push, but I just, and she's being kept as like the secret in Rehoboth. So, I mean,
Yeah.
from a woman's perspective too, you're just kind of like, okay, man, like, when are we going to move forward here? Like she knows something happened, and I just think it's going to be time. And if my stalking skills are anything, I think we might see her by finale.
Well, don't get me wrong. I do want them to be together, but I think from what I've seen, I'm a little like skeptical of what's going on. But I also think.
Oh, go ahead.
Mainly because of that whole storyline of in rescuing her and how it was such a. I don't know that when they were all grilling her, I kind of felt the same way as Bravo. I was like, why, you told
See, I was
Jay.
the other. So I didn't understand why they were so skeptical, because I feel like in the past they've never been this skeptical of her. They say she's a spook, but she's also saved their asses a lot of times.
True.
I just think, I think she's always had this thing about her though, that she did her job, she did it well, but she did carry guilt, kind of like Jason, in my opinion. So I don't think you do an arc of a story like that. And I don't think this is a show either that's going to be like, oh, there's a completely like, bad intention thing behind there, because they're way too authentic, and it's not going to be a Hollywood storyline like that. That's just me, at least.
But don't you think Mandy's always been a mirror of Jason, that they both carry guilt? They, from the very first episode, they talk about,
they
the guilt
reassure
of
each
the
other.
asset being, killed right after, of course, that they didn't get the terrorist guy. And I think that Jason and Mandy are both trying to save each other from carrying more of a burden of guilt, or adding to that burden of guilt. They want to save each other from that. But I also think Mandy has seen Jason with all of his other, love interests, and knows
Well, and that was my thing too.
Pushed.
I mean, like, they've always gone to each other and tried to reassure one another. Like, Jason sees her like, on the horn, like giving someone hell for, giving them bad intel. And she's like, I'm sorry. He's like, you did what you had to do. And, you had what we had to work with, and everything worked out. And she'll reassure him the same way. And I just think too, the other thing is, like you said, she's seen his other love interests, and she's seen him. And to be now, they've crossed a line. She's no longer in on the job. So it's a whole new, like, they're in a whole different like
dynamic
realm of a relationship now. And to see kind of like, okay, now she's on the side of like what she saw him do to other women. So it's just kind of like, okay, what do I do now?
But I think she doesn't want to wreck the connection at the same time. She still wants to keep the friendship and connection they've always had, but maybe
I don't think she ended it. I mean, she says, I don't think we should book this room for a while. And to me, that doesn't mean it's over. I think she knows that he's got a lot on his plate, and like even the writers tweeted out, like, even Jason isn't ready to talk to someone like Mandy, which is someone he's always opened up to. And I think it's key too in that hospital episode. I loved the Ray and Jason scenes. Those were really interesting. And if dialogue's gonna mean anything, for Ray to kind of be like, you ever think that Mandy was maybe the one good thing out of this war that happened, and that you might have a future together, and like pushing. And again, I just, Emma kind of pushing him to be like, embrace something outside of Bravo.
But don't you think his dad's words are ringing in his ear, that everyone who loves you pays? And so that's what he said to Mandy, I don't want you to pay. And he kind of was intimating that to Emma today, where, remember Grandma and Grandpa coming to stay with you guys? And, I've been a terrible dad. Those dad's words are just ringing in his head, and he's cutting.
Right. So he's definitely regressing. He's
regressing. He can protect everyone.
That's what I was going to say, is that they brought back the fact that they always bring back the like guilt that he had about Alana
Yeah.
and how he was and how he's kind of realizing that, you know, things weren't as great. And also the fact that before her tragic death is he was trying to patch things up with Alana and be a little bit more, you
Right.
know, of the father and be around more just as much as he could. And then, you know, she dies and then it's just been, you know, I don't think it was something he never really truly grieved her. And then it's like he's trying to move on, but then everything else is happening and then it gets brought up again from his father who seems to be just kind of he wasn't the best father. So it's just kind of like this pattern of like sticking, you know, wounds in.
All the fathers on the show are terrible. Clay's father's terrible.
Yeah.
You know, Jason's, Sonny's, they
I think
all are.
Ray
It's a
is the
pattern.
only one. Ray is the only one that had probably maybe a decent father.
But
And
who
Ray
died
was
He didn't get
later.
along with him though. Remember
I know,
Ray's
but he wasn't in the sense of like
He was a
you
present
had
father.
you had
Yeah.
Ash who was kind of like a glory hogger, you know, and
Yeah.
then you have Jason's dad who claims it. I could not get over the fact that Jason's dad was calling Jason a glory hog. I
Glory
lost
chaser.
my shit over that. I was just like, what?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? And I mean, I don't know. And then to compare like what Jason does to like a football team, and I'm like, it is not the same here. Like, I don't know that dad just really, really
Yeah.
put
He
a
was such
taste
an
in my
over the top character. I just wonder if they really meant for him to be that, you know, way. Don't you? And I thought it was interesting. Clay's dad was saying how someone like Jason would want to die on the battlefield, and then they did a close up on that letter he wrote to Emma and
I
and
know.
Mikey.
I was
Like, are they trying to, you know, foreshadow something?
mean,
I hope not.
but they've said it in interviews. They're like, you know, someone like Jason Hayes might go out like, you know, on the battlefield. So I don't know if they're I don't know, maybe Jason's gonna have a close call again. We haven't seen Jason have like a super close call in a while, so like that I remember at least.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the brilliant thing of it too, is that in those episodes where he did have a close call, he directed. So
Well, he's directing episode 13 as well, so
yeah,
I'm so
maybe
sad we
could be
only have 4
coming.
episodes left.
yeah,
I
because
can't believe we only have 4 left.
I know.
yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I want Jason and Mandy to be together, but there's something there that I can't put my finger on that makes me skeptical as a watcher, being like something. But maybe it's just the way it's, you know, been kind of
I
rushed.
think the biggest thing is that Jason really just needs to organize himself. He needs to do
Yeah.
self care before being in any relation. And I've said this since like, you know, since Mandy left or whatever. In general, I just, you know, Jason needs to take time for himself, because if you look at it, you know, he was with Alana, he goes on deployment, hooks up with that Amy chick, you know,
Yeah.
season 2, we know he's doing one night stands or something or another.
Right.
And then there was that, I don't know what happened with that Adams widow, and then season 3
That was
came.
super awkward.
Yeah.
And then season 3 came and we had Natalie. But before he went out with Natalie, he asked, you know, Mandy out, and then Mandy of course is just like, well, what is this gonna mean? And he didn't have an answer because he knew what it was. It was a distraction of all things. And then we had Natalie, and then we had the kiss at the end of 3, and since, you know, he went back to Natalie and kind of with, you know, Mandy, so I just, you know.
But everyone was pressuring him to be with Natalie. He had his therapist pressuring him, Emma pressuring him, Natalie herself pressuring him. I kind of want him to be able to fight for Mandy, to go to her for a change.
I was saying, that's why I think I was talking to you and someone else, that like I feel like Jason, he's always gotten the girl. You know, like we haven't seen him work his way into like actually being like, I really want to be with this girl, which is another thing I feel like Ray kind of brings up, is like, you know, you actually dig this chick, you know, and like, I think, and Mandy's not, I think Mandy's a different personality compared to, you know, all the women are strong, you know, that they've brought on this show in their own way, but like Mandy's a whole different, I think, level of it, only because she's been a part of that job side of it, maybe. But,
well, and they've been colleagues, they said, for years, since the dinosaurs or whatever. and they've just been together on all these dangerous ops for so long. I
Right, and
think
that's the thing. That's the thing that's confusing me is I don't know how long how long Mandy had worked with Bravo, because in that deleted
yeah,
was it a
it was
part
a
of the
deleted
deleted
scene.
scene
Yeah,
in the car?
yeah,
Yeah, in season 2 when Alana dies, there's a deleted scene, and it's actually that car scene when Mandy shows up. It's a longer version of it. We actually learn more about Mandy's background, but it got cut out, you know.
right.
So and then in 507 we hear, you know, when they're with Hannah looking at the baby and stuff, you know, on the couch there, which I was like, is this foreshadowing of a future or what going on here? And he's like, oh, you've been pushing, you know, space pop, you know, French space pop music for
Yeah.
years or something. And I'm like, years? I'm like, I don't know how that stuff works. Like, would someone be attached that long when working with a team? Or because,
So
you
if
know, we
Jason takes her out of Rehoboth and makes it real, he knows it's going to be something more than maybe he's ready for, possibly, and that's why he hasn't done it. He's
I think he's
scared to.
I think like ever since Alana died and then he asked her out on that initial trip back in season 3, I think he knows he's got feelings. I
Yeah,
always thought, and then they hooked up at 3 and we saw at the beginning of 4, and I always thought Mandy gave him an out,
yeah,
you
she
know,
did.
there to be like,
It was
this
a
doesn't have to
distraction
mean
for both
anything,
of
and he
us.
took it. And
Yeah.
I think he knows he's got feelings down there, and he's just afraid. I think that fear is so strong because he's got that guilt complex and everything, and like right now he's got all of his dad's words in his head right now, so it's just, you know.
And he's lost so much. He's lost so many people close to him, and I think he's afraid of losing somebody else that would mean that much to him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's interesting too is that it's kind of been alluded, and they showed them like when they always come back from deployment, how they would
Yeah,
go get burritos
those
together,
tacos. Yeah.
yeah, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And you know, there was always good conversation, and then that one where he like freaked out, kind of scared her a little bit, but also just kind of they touched on like they would reacclimate to home life together always, and then it just kind of,
Yeah.
you know, escalated from there. So it's not that I don't want them together. It's just it's something. There's just not enough details, I guess, or they've cut some scenes or something.
The
I
thing
feel
that drew me though is that every single episode from even the very beginning, they always have these little Jason and Mandy moments in all of them. So I'm like, if the writers didn't want them together, they've really been building towards something for the entire show. So it seemed like we deserved that payoff, or that I mean, every good writer knows you have to give the audience some payoff, especially if you've been building that and writing that.
I mean, I'm banking on Dave's words that saying something about the finale, like there'll be a nice payoff. I
Yeah.
hope that I'm not saying like, you know, and I didn't think like, you know, we had Jandy hook up, and honestly, in the back of my mind, I was skeptical because I was like, I know this isn't gonna last. Like, you know, and even we had Teresa, what's her name, one of the writers who was a part of that storyline
Oh yeah,
too,
yeah.
tweeting about we're gonna go all in on Jandy or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that. Because you knew
But
they
I
were
want
gonna
to believe.
you knew there was gonna be like a twist thrown in there and somehow something, because we knew the TBI was coming up. So I'm
Yeah,
just really curious though. So like, I don't know about you guys, but like I was saying before, season or episode 10 here, I had a completely different thing in my head of what was going. I thought like we were gonna have a cliffhanger like they always do to us, of like mid-action op shit's going crazy, oh my god, and then cut us off at the end there and then bring us into 2. But it was a
Yeah.
lot more like they did whatever they wanted to do,
Yeah.
came back, and then the confrontation between Jason and Clay, and then I was like, so wait, what is the next part gonna? Is the next part gonna be the part where I'm gonna be like, oh god, here we go? Like, I prepared myself for much worse. Of like, I thought there was gonna be more questioning of Jason, because the
Yeah.
synopsis was like, oh, Jason, his
Right.
leadership skills would be questioned, and I thought as a team everyone would, but it was just Clay. It seemed like.
And Clay's done that before in previous season. He always has his own ideas. He always pitches them and gets mad when Jason doesn't go with him. So that was really nothing new, I thought.
Right. I don't know. It was a little bit more different than I thought it would be, but in a
Yeah.
good way. I because
Right.
I don't.
I enjoyed
I
it.
mean, like you and I have talked about. I think like the thing is like, you know, watching the show, you're rooting for Jason to
Right.
not
Yeah.
find
Other dogs.
perfection, not perfect, but find something, you know,
Find a
happiness,
sliver of hope.
joy, right? And I mean, like, I think that's the one thing I was like, you know, I understand they're being authentic and this is all real, but I also think it's on the show to also show that hope side of, you know, there's
Yeah.
more, you know,
Because you don't
and
want
it,
them to just think that you give your all, you give up your family, your marriage, your health, everything, and end up alone in a garage apartment with a microwave.
right.
Yeah. But also, what's interesting to me is that, yeah, we're rooting for him because he has been the ultimate team leader.
Yeah.
Like, and he's willing to sacrifice for his teammates more than probably even other team leaders in the military. That's what they kind of are portraying, and that he's like a leader's leader, basically. And so, yeah, we all want him all around to be happier and have kind of more than just him being Bravo One. Because
But I was just gonna say every season they isolate him a little bit more. They, the first season they were stripping away his marriage. The second season they're stripping away part of the brotherhood. Then he's fighting for his career. Now we know his dad isn't supportive. I mean, he literally has no one, and he's becoming more and more isolated with his 3-foot world. And you just wonder where they can go. Are they making him at total rock bottom before they can build something hopeful and happy for him? I'm hoping that's where they're going.
yeah, I mean, it's weird because even though Ray talks to him, we've kind of seen Ray's doing his own thing with the nonprofit and having his storyline and everything.
Yeah.
So there's not as many scenes between them either,
No.
which
I
is
think like
interesting.
in general, I feel like since season 4 and especially in season 5 right now, there's a whole thing where everyone's going through a kind of like identity role
Mm-hmm.
crisis. You know, you
Yeah,
have Sonny being a new dad and he wants to be with Lisa but can't be with Lisa, and you know, trying to be with Hannah but now that's already over. And you know, you have Clay now with, you know, a sick dad. He had a pregnant wife, but now has a preemie, dealing with, you know, Jason and what to do there. And then you have Jason with, you know, all his issues. And then you have Ray, you know, he had the PTS. He has now the not for profit stuff he's trying to do. And which is another storyline that I hope they don't like just kind of
next
let
one.
it die down, because it's a huge storyline I think needs to be addressed. So but
I love the name is such a big part of it with him, that they're doing it as a team. I really, really like that.
mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, because it needs to be talked about that there's what needs to be done for veterans when they're
Well,
not.
she brings that medical side to it and the fundraising
Yeah,
side, and she's a smart woman, and I love that they're showing that.
yeah. But it's just been interesting that, yeah, like because of that what we thought of like having the best friend is different, and it's also because I also think that it hasn't been the same since Ray took his
Warrant
position
Yeah.
officer.
up.
Well, that's kind of how I feel with Lisa ever since she went to officer school. It's
Yeah,
definitely changed, which is, you know, I mean, naturally it should change because you can't go up the rank and not change. I mean, even with Blackburn just appearing once in a while, he's different because now he's a commander, you know, he's
yeah.
got a different role to play.
But it's a lot like separate stories and then coming together for a mission a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I also feel like that they had to kind of do that for all the characters because, yeah, we were going all in with Jason's storyline there for a while, and it was like it was the op, and then like what was going on with Jason and the family, and then so now it's kind of like you have to show everybody, but I think they're wanting to develop everybody. I'm confused because we see Brock like every once in a while, and now that Trent's gone, and
Yeah.
it's like, and then we're not even seeing the dogs very much anymore, and
Well,
just,
yeah, so I know Justin retired Dita, which of
yeah,
course is Cerberus there, so we get that. And I don't know what the issue with Pepper is, if she's still kind of in a training phase, which maybe that's why she's not on as often. Because I was just noticing that too. I was like, I don't see the dogs near as often as we used to before. And I don't know if it's because, you know, we're kind of sidelining the ops a little bit more or what. And
but I
That's
think
what I
it's
was
cool that they
thinking.
were showing
everyone
the
liked
dogs
Brock's
being,
look from Venezuela.
yeah,
Yeah, that was different.
yeah. I don't know, and then But it's also they're showing the storylines are affecting how the ops are going though, because it's like now it's always like Clay's questioning because of within reason, but then it's like Ray's like, well, I don't want to overstep Bravo. Like everybody's trying to like listen to Bravo One, but it's also like everybody's
Well,
kind of like,
I think we've seen Ray quite a few times this season be like, "You're putting me on Overwatch. You're
yeah,
not coming to me." Like
Didn't you love when Ray stuck up for Clay though, and Clay wanted to come back so bad, and Ray was saying to Jason, if he's got an idea, let's listen to him. And I love that he stuck up for Clay, and Clay did save the mission and had a good idea.
So I guess since this is the cliffhanger till January, but January is only like 3 weeks away, so it's not that far away, which is also scary in real life because this has felt like the last 2 years have felt like the longest, shortest years on the, how
Yeah.
they've.
I don't even know if like I realized 2 years have passed at this. Like someone will be like, "Oh yeah, you remember when we did this?" And I'm like, "When was that?" They're like, "That was like in January of 2020." I'm like, "It was."
Yeah.
I feel like just yesterday we were doing that. I don't even know timeline anymore.
The
I'm
before
like a
times
SEAL
and the
team
after
timeline
times.
right now. I'm a SEAL
Right.
team
Well,
timeline.
I guess you brought up a point about because of COVID how they've had to shoot and well all content has had to change because of protocols. Because didn't David say I know shows right now they have to be tested like every other day. So
I don't know if they're doing that anymore. I think maybe last season. I haven't heard anything about COVID protocols this year for this season. The only thing he's really talked about as far as filming is they do episodes in about 7 days at 10 hours a day, which is crazy to me because there's more dramified shows out there that do like 12, 16 hours a day at
yeah.
like 14 at almost 2 weeks. So they're like, I mean, they're currently filming the finale right now, I think, and will be done probably within filming wise, at least within the next week or so. So that's crazy. And I think I know a lot of people are like panicking over this being the last season, but I really don't think it is because from a strictly business point of view, it does not make sense to fight as hard as we did to get a season, get it on streaming, only to bait and switch subscribers and be like, okay, we're taking this away. And I know they're still working on a lot of international stuff and talking with some industry people too recently. If it's another bait and switch thing too, like how are you going to sell this internationally if the show is already like done? And I think they also want to get to 100 episodes for sure. I don't know if the show goes beyond 6 seasons though, because I guess it all depends how they end this season of where we're gonna go. Because we know Jason can't operate forever, but I don't
without
know, like,
him, is there really a show?
right? Even if he took another role, like on in the Navy of still maybe interacting with SEALs and stuff, and maybe we see another perspective. I don't know if people would still follow or not. I mean, I probably would just because if Dave's still there, I'll still be there. But
Maybe he wants to direct more or something.
Well, that's what
I think you're gonna see. Well, Neil, who plays Ray, he actually does SEAL Team, and then he does his other show Insecure at the same time sometimes. Right now,
Yeah.
And Max just became a producer of some sorts on another. So I think you're gonna see a lot of them start doing maybe some more projects with a streaming way of doing things. You have more time maybe to go do other things. So we'll see.
Don't you think they have to add another team member though, and maybe that's where they're gonna start filling in? So maybe Jason doesn't carry quite the load. They'll add another character possibly.
I would think So we lost Full Metal last season. And Trent's just
gone.
left
Sabbatical.
now. So, I mean, like we're down. I mean, I would think you have to.
But as you were just saying that, it just reminded me before this episode today, when he was like, when Clay said he was going to take a parental leave, I was like, well, that's because Max just got a new show. That's what I was thinking in my back of my head of like,
no,
he's producing another project. But then I'm like, but they are on streaming, so they're not doing like when you're on network TV, you do like typically you do like 22 episodes in a season.
Right.
But now when streaming, they don't have to do that many episodes.
Right. And like I said, they're saying that they do an episode in 7 days in 10-hour days. So I mean, if in 1 week you're getting an episode, and Dave has said they're pretty well. I mean, I just think 1 week with all the stuff you blow up and this and that sometimes that they do on there, and some of the crazy stunts and stuff they do, that yeah, you're definitely, I know there's a lot of people who like freaked out over Max being a producer on another show, and I'm like, it doesn't mean he's going to leave the show. I mean,
Yeah.
especially too, like the episodes we're watching, you have to understand too, like these were all filmed probably about a month or so ago, so it's not like, I don't really know if like the storyline of him leaving for parental had anything to do with that, but I don't know. I think some people just jump. I'm like, oh, we'll see what happens. I haven't seen anything from anyone that says like they're leaving the show, or like same thing with Trent. I mean, now that he posted on it, he was supposed to do an Instagram live today, but then he posted that he's in where did I say he was?
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia, I think, doing some
That service
documentary
is bad.
stuff. And he's made some comments recently that he actually enjoys being behind the camera more than in front of it. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, the reason I think we lost Full Metal too is they said Scott had he wanted to take a step back, or, address some. He's still a part of the show, actually, I think.
Yeah.
And I heard, so he's still there behind the scenes, but just wanted to step back maybe from front camera. But yeah, like I said, Neil already does 2 shows at once, so I'm not, and you don't see him leaving anytime soon. So, I mean, the storylines do make you wonder though, because you're kind of like, oh, these storylines are kind of like.
But the show has always been about Jason, don't you think? We started out with Jason's feelings about Nate and Jason's family, so I don't know that the show can really do without Jason.
Right. That's what I was
and
like.
the draw initially, to be honest, when being that I was a diehard Bones fan, and then it was like, oh, he's on a new show,
right?
But like
that was me too.
So it was like all of us David Boreanaz fans are probably going to follow him for the rest of his career wherever he wants to go. So I don't think they would take him off the show entirely.
Right. I mean,
I think if they take him off Bravo again, but they can't just stick him in like an ops room again, because we all didn't like watching him suffer. So,
well, okay, so I don't know a lot about military ranking, but the position that Blackburn had before he became commander, would that be something a person like Jason could apply for?
I mean,
or do like still kind of run with teams, but I mean, so like, because my question too, because so we have Lieutenant Commander Soto, who like this season has disappeared for like almost every episode. Like,
yeah,
I'm not really sad about that though, because he really
neither am I.
had a hard time with Jason.
I mean, if we could like have Jason take that role, but like be there all the time, that would be awesome.
Well, I don't know. I'm not a military expert. I don't know the rankings. Maybe I should Google it, but that would be cool though, to see him be like, okay, bring everybody to the briefing room and like be the one to brief. But I also think that with the character being that he's been, for 20 years.
I don't know if I've talked to Julie about this, but I really miss in season 1 and 2. I think what drew me to Mandy and Jason too was the way they worked intel together. Like I miss Jason working the intel angle as well.
He's so smart.
It really just showed like he's more than just the guy out on the field
door
being
kicker.
an operator. Right. So
well, and it also shows that you need to know the intel to be a good leader in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I'm curious where it's going to go. I mean, it's they left us in a cliffhanger, but I do agree with you.
Another good point another fan pointed out to me that I talked to was, back in like season, she's like, this person was telling me, if you think about every season though, like season 2, we went through, oh my God, is Jason going to leave? He didn't. Season 3 was the surgery. He didn't. Season 4, he didn't. So, I mean, I could see like maybe season 5, we get through it. He's still going to be there. And maybe somewhere in season 6, he changes career positions. But I don't think he's leaving yet.
They need a new cliffhanger. Is will he, won't he come back to SEAL Team?
Right.
Yeah. Well, with that, oh my gosh, we're a couple minutes over and everybody's watching. So Well, on that, we're gonna leave it a cliffhanger. And I want to thank you both for joining my podcast to talk
Oh,
about this. It flew
It was
by.
so
thank you for
fun.
the invite.
Yeah,
We
and
could watch
we'll
SEAL
have to
Team all
do.
day, I think.
Yeah, and we'll have to do
Maybe
this
we should do
when
a
it comes back.
podcast for each episode.
Yeah. Well, did you know that there is there's a group that I found that they just started in 2020 doing. They're breaking down every episode of Bones.
Really?
So
Oh my god, that's a
yeah,
lot
and
of
they're on season
episodes.
3 right now. It's called
I feel
the
like I
Bones
broke
Boot
it down.
podcast.
So what's
Yeah,
funny
so
about Bones, real quick, is so the pandemic hit, and then like we were kind of like I was sort of home, but not really. So you had this extra time in your hand. I found Bones on Amazon. I'm like, ooh, Bones. So I just cherry pick through and watch my favorites or I follow some Bones pages. I'm like, oh, I remember that scene. Let me go watch that episode. And then I got my brother and sister-in-law into they're like they ended up watching Bones as well. They binged all 12 seasons last summer. And like, yeah,
You got me to watch it. I only watched the first 7 episodes though.
it's good. I don't call myself an original Bones fan though, because when I got onto the show, season 7 had just started. And this was when
I watched
Netflix
from the beginning of Bones.
Yeah, so I binged through those 6 seasons of I didn't wait 6 years. I waited like 3 weeks, and I was like, oh good, they're together.
Well, that's a whole controversial thing in the fandom of Bones is like when spoiler alert, when they get together, everybody's like, I don't know, the show wasn't that great. And I was like, I actually kind of like those seasons. I've been watching those episodes being like,
So like
I like Emily
I
and
watch
David.
I watch a lot of from season 6 moving forward, and I would say Bones is my comfort show because like I've watched a lot of other shows like Castle and all these other things, similar shows, and we get like the ship and everything, but for some reason Bones always stuck with me because we had 6 seasons of like they weren't together, but they acted like they
The
were
will they,
together.
won't they?
Right. But like we knew that we were going to get the payoff, and then when we got 6 more beautiful seasons of them together going through life with kids, marriage, this that, and I don't know, I think that's like the most beautiful love story I've ever watched on TV. Like, and you can go back and analyze like should Booth have said this or Brendan done that, whatever, but the story is what it is, on screen. And it's a comfort show of mine that I just thought it wasn't one of those shows like I feel like we watch a lot of shows who run and it'll be like they get together and then the show only lasts like a season or 2 after that you get to see them together. And this was like 6 years, and they still figured out how to create like tension and angst with those two, but make it beautiful and like awesome. And a lot of that I always say is like Dave and Emily and everything. I mean, Dave,
what was great about it too
could
is
just stare at a wall and I'd be like, wow, that was amazing.
what was cool though is that in those seasons though, the pastor, sorry I'm spoiling it for anybody, but the pastor that's about to is at the rehearsal dinner was Emily's real life
That's
husband.
her real life husband.
And then Jamie's in an episode
where
they're undercover and she's like almost a suspect.
That was the Cars. What is it?
It was like a demolition derby. So I just
Dave's daughter was in an episode as well. I think in one of I think the episode where like Bones goes to the school, Christine's school. One of the shots of the kids, I think, is Bella.
Yeah.
And so there's like a lot of fun things they did on that show. And I don't know, in general, I loved the females on that show. That was a great show for females to see these smart, like they knew what they were doing.
Women in STEM.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is what I I think that's why I miss Mandy a lot on SEAL Team. I thought she was a great, strong female character. And when she was with Lisa, I thought it was a great dynamic. And when she left, it just, especially when Lisa became officer and then Mandy sacrificed her career, it kind of like all of a sudden it was like Lisa was like the intel person and she knew what she was doing. I was like,
yeah. I wish they had more women on the show for sure.
Oh yeah. I thought I heard a rumor they weren't gonna, because I don't know if you guys heard about, was it this year, the woman that completed the SEAL Team
yes
thing, and I think someone asked, "Are you gonna put that on the show?" And I think they said probably not, but I
I
heard,
thought Spencer Hudnut said they were talking about it
I
anyway.
think they were talking about it, but I don't think they wanted to do necessarily it be the SEAL team, like she passed SEALs or something, but somehow
Yeah.
do something. I don't know if that's coming up still or if they
I wouldn't
scrapped
even
it
mind
maybe
a
from the season.
conversation about it. It's like let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about it. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why I think like Lisa has an opportunity here to like,
Yeah.
get women involved in this and that. And I
But she
think
kind
that
of
would have
has
been a
separate
fun.
stories though. She every season she kind of has a separate story from the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it again, every episode hooks me, and I'm like, oh, I want to know more about that. I want to know more
Yeah.
about that. So,
Season 5, I think, has been probably the most intense
Yeah,
season, in
very
my
intense.
opinion.
Yeah.
Season, though, I think the reason, I think Julie, I don't know, I told Julie about this, but I think the reason season 4 really just irked me, I think, was it was on network TV. We literally got like one episode, we'd be off for 2 weeks, get another episode, be off for 2 more weeks. Like the whole Ray arc of being captured
Tortured.
was
Yeah.
like a month to
oh,
just over a month long to watch. So it was like you would be
I'm glad
so
I binged
intense.
watched it in like a
You'd be
week.
so intensely in it. They did not give us 3 or 4 episodes a row until the last 3 or 4. And then
Yeah.
finally they got rid of all the breaks. Like they delayed premiering, and so I think that's why part of me just couldn't get into season 4 sometimes, and it just
The
felt
pacing was so off.
it was so off. Like the trial episodes too, those took like a month to a month and a half because there was a 2 week break in between each part, and that was
Yeah.
like a 3 part episode there. And I'm like, okay, where'd we leave off?
Yeah, what was happening again?
Yeah. Well, so I guess I'm glad I've binged watched
Yeah,
everything
you're
until
lucky.
now. Because yeah, I mean, I'm just used to it, I guess, at this point of just binge watching things. So it didn't occur to me that there was all that break. I didn't know there was breaks between episodes because I was on
Oh,
a
yeah,
cliffhanger,
there
which
should
is
be.
why I was binge watching it, is because I
well, that
couldn't
well, you know,
couldn't stop pressing play because
Yeah.
do that arc because I
well,
was
that
like,
was
oh, the
that was one
trial,
of the
and then yeah,
questions I had once the news came out about like going to Paramount. And then as we were getting closer to, now, I was wondering about like, okay, is Paramount going to do like a winter break, a few little
Yeah.
break? Because someone had told me on Evil they do a break, but it'll be interesting moving forward because I think, as far as I know, on Paramount, they're only supposed to get 10 episodes on
Right.
streaming, which is what they're doing here. We just got 4 because CBS still had a contract to fulfill. But the episodes look like they're getting longer. We're up to like 48 minutes now. So
well, that's my
hopefully
point with
we push
streaming.
closer.
Yeah, is that they don't have to be in a window because of advertisements, because of commercials.
Yeah.
On streaming, it's like they can make an hour episode or whatever to tell the story as long as it keeps the episode count down. So, well, again, thank you, ladies, for joining me. I appreciate
Thank you
it.
for the
Thanks for the
invite.
invite.
All right, and we'll have to do this probably back in the back half of the season, or when it comes back, or next year. It will be next year.
Yeah.
Technically.
Right.
So,
Let's do it.
all right. Well, thank you. And thanks to everybody that will listen to this or watch this in the replays. And be safe and happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Bye.